Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Happy Not Satisfied podcast. My name is Dan Morrison, and I'm the founder of Happy Not Satisfied and host of this podcast. Today, we have an incredibly special episode for you, as first of all, I'm joined by my special co-host and wife, Ellie Morrison. Hi, Ellie.
Hello.
And we have the amazing Claudia Zapata and Sean Elliott with us, who I was telling them before we started, I could read a bio that lasted probably a whole episode's worth, but super briefly, Claudia is an exercise and nutrition expert and founder of the Diplomacy Diet, which is an incredible platform that we're going to get into later. Sean is an NBA champion, an NBA All-Star, and broadcaster for the San Antonio Spurs. But all that aside, and way more important than that, they are our matchmakers. So, Sean, Claudia, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I figure before we jump into anything too heavy, we could just quickly talk about the whole thing that happened with how you guys introduced Ellie and I, because it's a funny story and told very differently, I think, on our two sides at least. But just from my perspective, I got the greatest text ever from Claudia. I was at work and it was like, I know this girl and she's into music and fine arts. And I think that you could work, and do you want to meet her? I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yes, of course. So I think I'm walking into a setup. But Ellie, I think, had different information.
Yes, mind you, this was 11 years ago, so we were a lot younger, and I was just about to move out of my parents' house after having spent a couple months there after graduating from college because I had just gotten my first job. So I was still with my parents when my mom said to me, oh, there's this boy. He moved to San Antonio from, Illinois, and he doesn't know anybody and he needs friends. And we're going over to Claudia and Sean's for dinner. And Claudia thinks that it would be nice if you would, be nice to him because he just moved to San Antonio and he doesn't know anybody. And I said, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll go. But my entire family went.
Yeah. I walk in, I was like, oh, it's going to be like Sean and Claudia, me and Ellie. No. First of all, I'm late because of work, and then Ellie's there with her whole family, and another family is there, and I was like, all right, here we go.
Family dinner party. And Claudia set us together. We sat us together at the table for dinner, and then the rest is history. Yeah, and now we have a baby.
11 years later and a baby, and here we are. So anyway, I would love to hear from your perspective, Claudia, and maybe Sean, how that all went down, or what you were thinking, or if you had any dreams of it being where it is today.
Sean probably knew 5 minutes before I was doing it. Who knows? But I remember Dan had moved to San Antonio. We were friends with Jen, Dan's sister. And she said, oh, my brother is going to be band director of a high school that's in our district, really around the corner. So we kind of took Dan to a few Spurs games, and he was nice. He was a little shy, I thought.
Very shy.
Very shy. And Ellie
brought me out of my shell.
We grew up knowing Ellie when she was a little girl. Her mom and I are friends. Her brother and our oldest son went to school together. It's starting in second grade. So I've known Ellie since she was a little girl. And I don't know why, when I first thought of you two together, I think you had significant others, not very significant.
Probably in college. Yeah.
They weren't very significant. They were just.
Mine was so insignificant she didn't exist. So.
Oh, okay. And so when I finally saw, I guess maybe via Facebook, single, I just thought of you two. I know that Ellie was really into Broadway and theater, and you were too, and you were the same age. And yes, I wanted to introduce Dan to people his own age because he was living in a part of San Antonio that is not easy to meet other people. So then I thought about two, and then I did have the entire family over for dinner, and I was very nervous, not for you all to meet, because your mother, Ellie, is such an excellent cook.
Oh my goodness.
I was worried about cooking for her. I remember that. And then, Dan walked in, and then I think the next day he texted me, thank you for introducing me to something like this. Thank you for introducing me to Ellie. She's beautiful.
Hey, there we go.
And no, not in my, I was so happy when you started dating, but then the marriage, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like my greatest accomplishment.
Yeah, it's one of her crowning achievements.
And now Leo, I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I knew 5 minutes before. I mean, I knew a lot longer because she's like, I'm going to set up Dan and Ellie. And I was like, come on, babe. Like, what are you doing? How is that going to be possible? And I saw, I'll be honest, I saw a little bit of something on the corner of my eye when you guys were first talking. I saw Dan kind of sitting there waiting for you to come over. And I was like, oh, okay. What happened here? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we're really, we love you guys, and we're just
Yeah, just
so
for both of
happy
you.
and inspired and proud and all of it.
Well, thank you. I mean, there's not enough thank you in the world for introducing us. I mean,
11 years later,
Yeah.
here we are, which
kinda
is
crazy.
crazy.
Unreal.
It's crazy.
But anyway, so besides that amazing story, I would love to talk more about a couple different things. But as I was telling you guys and anyone that's listened at all before, sort of the hook of all these episodes is talking to really successful people across all kinds of industries about a time that they created their own luck. And I think luck is a word that has a lot of different connotations, and people think of it differently when they hear the word. But I also think it's easy to look at someone who is successful and think, oh man, they caught their lucky break, or they were an overnight success, but they don't know about the 10, 20 years of just grinding and working that might have gone into the moment that they actually noticed this person. So to me, it's kind of giving other people hope, including myself, that it's like, you can achieve great things if you stick to something and you're consistent and you work hard. So all that to say, I would love if you guys have a story of a time in your life, maybe you feel like that kind of happened for you, where it maybe looked to somebody else like it was luck, but you knew what actually went into it for you to get there.
You go ahead. You got a story.
Well, I mean, I think I have a few stories like that. I was telling Claudia the other day when we were talking about this, there was a famous golfer, his name's Gary Player, and he was at a tournament here in Texas years ago, and he was practicing his sand shots, bunker shots, and he knocked 3 of them in a row, knocked them in the cup. And there was a lone bystander, this guy that was watching him, and the guy said, "Boy, you sure are lucky." And Gary Player said to him, he said, "Yeah, the more I practice, the luckier I get."
Yeah.
And so, how that pertains to me is like, I hit a shot here in San Antonio, the Memorial Day Miracle.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah, so a lot of basketball fans here, know about it, and I'm constantly reminded in San Antonio about it. But I've heard people say, "Well, it was a lucky shot," and yeah, there was some luck that went into that, no question about it. I mean, just catching the inbound pass, not stepping out of bounds was a little lucky, but the actual shot wasn't lucky, because that was years and years and years of practice and thousands of those corner threes. And so for me, I say, okay, call it luck if you want. Maybe I made my own luck, but I made my own luck through years and years of practice. And so, yeah, if you want to call it lucky, that's fine. And I did that day. I made my own luck, but it took years to make my own luck. And so, like I tell her all the time, and you guys can relate to this, when somebody goes to a Broadway play, they see the final product and they don't see the rehearsals. They don't see the hours and hours of practice behind that. And so for me, yeah, I made my own luck because I feel like I worked myself into it.
That's incredible. I'm so glad you chose that as a story, because so many people know it. I think it's amazing. And yeah, going to a Broadway play, but also going to a Spurs game. I mean, you see those guys out there like doing incredible feats of athleticism. They didn't just wake up and were able to do that. They weren't able to run for 60 minutes a game because they were just born that way. So I think all that is something that is easy to overlook. Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. And I don't know, Claudia, I'm sure you have a million stories like that too.
When you first mentioned that, talk about how you created your own luck, I was a little bit taken aback. I was like, wow, I've never thought of it that way. I guess I've never really thought of the word lucky. Like I thought, okay, lucky, blessed to have been born to parents, who taught me great worth ethic, who valued education, who valued loving us. We were well loved, well taken care of, and also always expected to achieve. So I guess I can call myself lucky to be born into such a great family. But then I started thinking about it more, and I just think luck is really about planning and setting yourself up for success as often as you can. So from the start, I always think that how you do one thing is pretty much how you approach everything in life. So by setting yourself up for success, and I can come up with a few instances, and then surrounding yourself with the right people, I think being around good, inspiring people, the opportunity to be lucky will present itself much more often. When you're prepared and you're also willing to put yourself out there, then you'll get some luck will come your way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you say that, because what made me think to sort of frame the podcast in this way. And really, I had thought about doing a podcast, and I was like, I don't want to just be like some guy talking. Like, there's enough of that out in the world. But then when I had the idea of like framing it this way, I was like, okay, I think I can do something there. But it was because literally somebody said to me, just about a couple different things, like, oh, you've just gotten lucky, so I'm not really sure like how I can relate to that. And I was like, whoa, like it took me aback a little bit. But my first thought was, Claudia, what you just said was, well, I mean, in a lot of ways, yes, you can't choose what you're born into. And, you know, I have loving parents, and I have my health, and I have all these things. And to me, you can call that luck, or being blessed, or whatever you want. But then I took it a step further and thought more as like, I don't think he was referring to that, though. I think he's more talking about these opportunities that we try to create for ourselves, and we may not know when they're going to come or why they're going to come exactly. But if we continue to work and are consistent and move progress towards it, then usually something works out in our favor. And I think that's the version of luck that people see and think is an overnight success.
Right.
Absolutely. You know, people, we joke because men, not just women, men will tell me how lucky I am.
To be with Sean?
Yes.
Or what?
Men will tell me this. I'm like, oh, okay.
And they'd be right.
Own it.
I'm sorry, but we are entering our 22nd year of marriage, and
congratulations.
Thank you. Luck has nothing to do with it. It's work. It's work. It's fact, it's commitment. Luck has zero to do with it. And so I always, you know, I'm a little annoyed. And Dan, I heard you talking a couple of podcasts ago too about how that would annoy you. Sometimes people would say luck because it just kind of takes away from all the hard work that you put into it. So yes, I'm blessed to be with this wonderful man right here.
I'm lucky too. I mean, obviously, I mean, I know that. The ratio is like 10-1. I mean, I'll have people come up to me and say, "Oh man, you're a lucky man." But she gets like, "Oh, you're so lucky," like a bunch of times. I'm like, "Yeah, yes, she is."
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get it too. I get. Oh, you're lucky to be with Dan, and somebody that.
Yeah,
right. I am. But hey, you know how many years we had to work through, like a lot of things to get to the point where now things click, and then adding a child on top of it, there's a whole nother level of, okay, and I sense it, like, all right, we're literally working. It's, you know, what do you say, maximum engagement?
Oh yeah.
This is a topic that we like to talk about a lot, but everything is work, and anything that's worth something in life is a lot of hard work. It doesn't just come easily. Absolutely. And whether, I think especially with, you know, Claudia, maybe we can kind of get into this a little bit, since you and I are very much in the sort of Instagram social media space with what we both do. There's a lot of seeing people at their best, seeing people in the highlight reel, all of that. But really, it's just a ton of work that goes into these things. And it's easy to sort of get distracted or get down on yourself or whatever when you're looking at other people who seem to have what you think you would be lucky to have. But there's so much underneath the tip of the iceberg, like what you like to say, the part of the iceberg that's under the water, to build to that part that people just don't know about. So I think with that, we might transition into the diplomacy diet, because I really want to talk about Claudia's new project. Well, it's not new. I know it's been, you've been living the diplomacy diet for decades.
I trademarked it, I want to say 12 years ago.
Wow.
And so I knew it was a good idea. And originally it was going to be always just a book. And I still want to write the book, you know, as soon as life stops getting in my way. And
it's a great title. I mean, the title alone is like bestseller.
Well, can you explain the title? Because we know why it's called the Diplomacy Diet, but.
Well, I attended Georgetown University's School of Foreign Service in DC. And my dad thought that a lot of kids who graduate, not a lot, but, you know, you go into the foreign service. My dad thought I would become some ambassador. My parents loved to travel. And so I think my dad was, you know, living vicariously through me and thought that I would become an ambassador and travel the world. And he was very excited. Well, after graduation, you know, life got in the way. I was a young mom and I started teaching fitness classes. He was beside himself. He's like, I cannot believe I spent all that money for you to jump up and down all day. Oh. And so I joked with him and I said, Dad, I'm an ambassador to good health.
100%.
And then it always stuck with me. And then I think I took a class we were at Canyon Ranch in Tucson, and I took a class from a guy, and I just remember one story about it, and it was about negotiations. And he said, if you're going to eat a hot dog at a baseball game, eat a hot dog at the baseball game. But do you have season tickets, and are you going to the baseball game all season? Are you eating a hot dog every time? So he just
interesting.
And so I kind of went back to what I told my dad, and I really think that most negotiations that we make, you all are making negotiations about, for instance, who's going to bathe Leo, who's going to watch Leo while one of you is busy or working out, etc. So we make negotiations with each other. Are you grabbing lunch? Am I making dinner? All of it. But most negotiations that we make really happen in our heads and take place with them ourselves.
Yeah.
From getting up to working out, you have second thoughts. God, should I sleep in longer? Are you adding something to your coffee? Are you going to fast a little longer? Whatever it is, but we make negotiations with ourselves throughout the day. So the diplomacy diet really is about making people aware of the negotiations they're already making, and then reminding them that there are still options. Ellie, you mentioned something in that podcast with Dan that I thought was so wise, how you talked about, after the baby, you wanted to, get back in shape. And you said, you don't have to overthink it. It's having the spinach. It's getting the workout in. It's, not necessarily. So there's always an opportunity to choose health. And the diplomacy diet is very much about that, about gutting the guilt. If you indulged last night, if you've been on the couch for 9 months or a year, whatever it is, it's about gutting that guilt and just remembering that you can choose health at every opportunity. And eventually they become habits, and you don't have to sit there and overthink it and negotiate with yourself once it's a healthy habit.
And go on crazy diets all the time.
Yeah.
That's not what it is.
Yep. It's
a
diet,
daily
diplomacy diet.
Right.
It's a daily lifestyle, and it's, for me, when I frame in my own head how I've become my most healthy version of myself over the past several years, and now trying to get back to that after having a baby. For what makes it sustainable for me, it's about the choice that's immediately in front of you. It's not about, all these, this goal down the road, and Well, the goal will happen. But for me, it's okay. We went out to breakfast yesterday morning. Instead of getting the burrito, I got the salmon plate with, the greens on it. It's literally, that's how I'm going to achieve my goal, is one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And, that obviously relates to you and Happy Not Satisfied and all of the.
Yeah, no, that was a great segue. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But before I go there, I do want to say, listening to you, Claudia, talk about your mindset with the diplomacy diet and the negotiations with yourself, I can't tell you how much I relate to that. And the fact that you're kind of bringing that to light and making people aware of that is so important. And I do that constantly, and I'm always talking to myself about is this worth it now? Is this worth it in the future? And I'm always trying to make decisions that my future self will be proud of and happy with. But it's hard to go that one extra step and not think about your current, just what do I want for the next 5 seconds? What am I going to be happy about when I think back tomorrow? Or it's tomorrow, I think back to yesterday, I made this decision. That's going to give me fulfillment, and it's going to get me to my goals. And so I've never heard anyone really put it so clearly as that. And it really made me happy, because it's something I think about, but don't ever really know how to articulate. So if you're listening, go check this out. This is not an ad, but that's really, it's really incredible stuff. Yeah.
I love what you just said there. I mean, I wish that I would had more people say exactly what you just said to me when I was younger. Make decisions that make your future self proud or make your future self happy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could just keep that mindset, I mean, I would have saved myself all kinds of trouble.
Just knowing the small stuff does add up.
Yeah.
It adds up. So Sean and I, we go out to dinner, and I've been trying to tell him that we're reaching the age where we're supposed to split entrees.
I don't know if I can do that.
And he's just not having it. I'm not there yet. And I was like, okay, how about no appetizers? And he's like,
I'm a big person. I mean, I'm asking me to split something with you.
That is fair. That's a fair point.
But the 3 appetizers, I'm like, babe, you don't need to get 3 appetizers.
I'm staying out of that one. I am staying way out of that one.
Just knowing it. And so the other day we talked about it. I said, it adds up. I said, let's go for a walk. And we drove in, and he's not as much of a fan of walking as I am. And I've tried to incorporate more walking, after a meal, and not, even if I go to the gym, I work hard, I still try and get the nature pill. And you live in Los Angeles, so it's beautiful most of the time. We've been in Seattle for 2 weeks. I don't know why. We're in San Antonio, but it's felt like it's just been rainy and gloomy. And
Yeah.
And just trying to get the steps in outside, and then also fitting in little moments of movement. So we were coming home and I said, it adds up. I was times we were walking, I was like, this adds up. Just doing this adds up, and you can't, and plus you'll sleep better. And so knowing that the small moments that you choose something for you, something, that promotes health in you, whether it's sitting down with a book, it doesn't have to be, and just getting a little bit of self-care that way. All those moments really do add up to better health in the long term, not just in the short term.
Yeah. And I think even on the other side of that, something I think about a lot is that when you make the opposite decision in the small moments, those add up in the wrong way. And then you look back and you're like, how did this happen? It's like, well, when you had these just little things added up, because I've felt that too. And so, yeah, I think everyone wants there to be like a big grand gesture and a grand thing that happens that like is enlightening and forever changes them, but it's just not how it works.
That's exactly right.
I'd be curious. So there's like with this whole happy, not satisfied thing, like the phrase to me is sort of like going to bed proud of what you did that day while looking forward to what you get to do the next day, and finding joy in that continual process and not just thinking like I'm going to get to this end thing, kind of like what we were just talking about. Like there's no end is what I say, is like, you don't get to an end, or you don't retire and all of a sudden you just stop doing everything and you're happy. If anything, that's going to have the exact opposite result. And sort of tied in with that is this idea that achievements are byproducts of the process. And so, Sean, I'd be curious, obviously, like you've had like tangible things that you can point to that were, I'm sure, goals that you achieved. But what was your mindset with that? Like, do you feel like you dwelled a lot on the actual goal? Did you think about the process? Did you, as you matured in your career, did your mindset shift on those milestones?
I did have goals, but, Dan, I came from, I think my foundation as a young player kind of grounded me a little bit more because I wasn't like a highly recruited guy out of high school. I flew under the radar maybe my first couple of years in college. My last 2 years, received a lot of recognition. And so for me, I've dreamt of being in the NBA. That was a goal of mine. I just wanted to get there. And then when I got there, I had a goal of making the All-Star team. I wanted to be on a championship team. But I always, for me, and even now today, I was really never satisfied or content with my accomplishments or my achievements. And it wasn't like, I just wanted more and more. That wasn't what it was. It was just, I didn't ever want to rest and be content or rest on my laurels. So, for example, if I had a really good game one night, I wouldn't dwell on that for the next day or the next 2 days. I would put that in the rearview mirror. I'd build like a brick wall behind me, and I'd say, on to the next one. Don't dwell on that, because you dwell on those old accolades, you tend to get caught up. You get full of yourself. And so, like in the NBA, we used to have a saying, you're only as good as your next game. So it didn't matter if you had a big performance one night. That didn't matter to me. The next night, I wanted to try to do it again. I wanted to be just as good or be better. And so I kind of had that mindset actually my entire career. And so, I mean, I don't know if, what other people, what their mindsets were, but for me, that was the key to my success.
What about today? What about now?
What about now?
You're resting on your laurels.
I mean,
resting, literally resting.
Well, I mean, it's I have a great job. I mean, it's I've been the broadcaster for 21 years now, I think, for the team. But we've gotten a few surprises. Like 1 year I got a trophy for best analysis, and then we won an Emmy a couple years back. And so, I want to do that again. I would love to replicate that and do that again. I think it's a goal for me and for the entire crew that we'd love to have that same kind of accomplishment. I mean, why go backwards?
The follow-up I would have is, especially like during your career, were you still able to kind of extract joy from like putting that brick wall behind you and looking at the next thing? Like, did that affect how you looked at life or your happiness or your overall like mental wellness?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Now, I would be happy if I had a big performance. I mean, I would enjoy it and thoroughly enjoy it. But then there came a point where you had to put that in the rear view and you had to press forward. So yeah, I mean, enjoy the moments in life, enjoy the minor victories, enjoy those, and enjoy the major victories. But at the same time, once you're over that enjoyment, it's time to go back to work. So yeah, I got a lot of joy from that, no question about it. But I was always looking ahead and trying just not to be stagnant.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think you were talking about the whole relationship aspect of things, and
I'm fascinated when I look at, you know, a couple like you, and you see both partners who are actively working to achieve their own goals, and they're both sort of you know, public facing in their projects and their jobs and stuff. I think I'm curious because it's something that I think about a lot in our relationship, and how, you know, to support one another through achieving those milestones and continuing to maintain joy in the in-between. How do you, Claudia and Sean, sort of support each other and work as a team to help get each other to those milestones, and really creating an environment and a dynamic in your home and in your relationship that supports that growth, both personally and together as a couple?
I handle all the emails. That's what we're
I picked up on that quickly.
Up on that, yeah.
Yes.
I had a lot of the communication, but you know, I don't know. I think that we both, one of the reasons people ask us about, and I'm digressing a tiny bit about the secret to healthy marriage, and I've always said it's maintaining respect for each other. And I don't mean just the way we speak to each other, because we don't lose respect for each other. We never have, we never will. I don't know, I always believe that I never saw my parents do it, and I always believe that that's just, once you lose respect, you pretty much lose everything. But there's also just the overall respect. You know, if I hear him speaking, for instance, it's amazing. I know you all have experience with each other. I mean, watching Dan, you know, lead Reagan high school band here in San Antonio. I mean, all the way to the top several times over. We were proud.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine how Ellie felt. I think that we're always proud. We're just pretty proud of each other. I don't know. I kind of, you know, I'll definitely bounce ideas off of him as far as some of my diplomacy diet stuff, and he might bounce some game. I really can't keep up with the NBA anymore, so I don't know if you
like
do that.
speaking engagements, stuff like that. And so I think one key for us is that we support each other and cheer for each other. You know, that's the biggest thing. There's, you know, no kind of, oh, she's doing this and she's making a name for herself. I'm jealous of that, or she's jealous of my success. That's not how we've operated. We've always been each other's biggest cheerleader. And so when I see her doing things, and I see her starting to build her business and the diplomacy diet, like, I'm thrilled. I'm happy for her, because I know, you know, that's the key also to having a great relationship, when everybody feels their worth. You know, it's a big problem for a lot of people in life to have one person have all the success and the other person doesn't, and maybe they feel like they're a second, you know, they're like 1A, they're not an equal. And so for us, I love when she's becoming more successful. I get out of her way. I say, you know, if you need me to do something, I'm here. I'm here.
Taste tester. He's a taste tester.
Hey.
And then on the flip side, there are so many things that she's done for me. Like, if I'm preparing for a speech, and I know that my speaking engagements, when she helps me, I'm so much better. And what comes from that is, you know, I've always been coached for a long time. You know, I've had a lot of coaches that would come right at you with criticism and constructive criticism, and she's not shy about that. When she does come with something, for a second, I might bristle, but then I'm gonna be like, you know, think about it and say, yeah, okay, all right, she's right. And so, you know, I can accept her criticism, and sometimes she can accept mine. And so
it's not bad.
And that helps. It helps a lot. It helps to have somebody there who's intelligent and smart, and who can, you know, you can bounce things off, and they're there to help you.
Well, we haven't said this publicly, but Sean is graduating from the University of Arizona December 16th, because you know, he didn't finish. He left a little early to join the NBA. and he's been back at school for the past 2 years.
Congrats.
Graduates next week.
Yeah, I was on the 35-year plan.
Better late
So
than
when he was
never.
talking about I'm fixing his term papers, and I said, he said, what kind of classes? I mean, I don't like what I picked as my major, which I think was like general studies or something. He said,
Yeah.
I said, why don't you take things that interest you? That's what it's about. And I wish I could go back to school and take all the things that interested me now, and I still might. But so I found myself editing papers on Slavic vampires. Because those are the classes that he takes.
That's all I had left. All I had electives. So, I mean, I maybe have 2 core classes, 3 core classes left, and then the rest were high level electives. And so I took like 3 film classes.
Dracula.
And it was great. I mean, I've been having the most fun. And so I'm almost like kind of sad that it's going to end, I'm like, what? College isn't for the 17, 18, 19.
No.
I say that as someone who's in school again right now, I say that like every day. I can actually enjoy and appreciate it. Well, first of all, congrats. That's incredible. Second of all, I'm not surprised, having talked to you, that you took a bunch of film classes. And then finally, I think that you need to be putting out like top film list stuff, because you introduced me to some amazing movies over the years, and I think people would benefit from that. So, in all of your free time, that can be your next project.
Right. Yeah, maybe. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't go for all the Hollywood stuff anymore, I like stuff that has subtitles and
well, exactly. That's what you were showing me. Yeah.
They're not formulas, they gotta have some meaning, and they have to be smartly done. I mean, I just can't stand convenient writing and editing. It drives me nuts. So it's got to be a smart story.
You heard it here first. You could be a film the San Antonio Express News might need a film critic. That could be big time. I think that's a good idea.
From sports announcer to film critic.
Yeah. I was gonna say at some point on this that I've always looked at you as a Renaissance man. A lot of people probably just know you as like an NBA player and a broadcaster, but every time I talk to you, that was never the first thought that I had. So.
I like everything, and once I get hooked on a hobby or something that interests me, then I'm all in, and I go down the wormhole. Like wine is the one thing for me. So I've gone down the wormhole with that, and there's no coming back. I mean, every day I read about wine. Every day I read about wine, and so I'm the home sommelier. I'm sommelier to a bunch of friends. They can be at a store. They'll call me, hey, what am I supposed to buy? And I'm always directing people. So that, obviously one of my passions, my passions, but yeah, that's what happens with me, Dan. I just go nuts.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I mean, I would imagine that's also partially why you were such a successful athlete, is that at the time you went nuts on basketball and, it turned into a great career.
Yeah. Well, I read something actually in one of my last classes about, which was really interesting to me, about disciplinary and multidisciplinary athletes and people.
Yep.
It's not just athletes, but they found, they used 2 examples. Tiger Woods was a disciplinary athlete, where he was playing golf at 2 years old. And so his dad had him, hitting balls and doing all this stuff. What is that called?
This book is exactly, they use that example. Are you going to say Roger Federer next?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. Yeah.
I'm a mind reader.
Yeah. So, that was my story. I was more Roger Federer. I was a soccer player, baseball, ran track, did all these things.
State wrestling champion at 14.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
I mean, that was like, don't even get me started on stuff.
Yeah.
I was an athlete. I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player or a pitcher or a professional soccer player. And then I gravitated toward basketball in high school. But all those sports, when you participate in all those, they teach you strategy, game plan. You get a sense or a feel of what you should do out there, and it helps your hand-eye coordination, helps your footwork, all those kind of things, as opposed to some people that just specialize in one area, and they're only good in that sport. And it's the same thing when it comes to business. You get people that have accounting degrees along with another discipline, and they become a good businessman. Or maybe that wasn't their field, but they're proficient in all these other fields that they've practiced in, and it supports ultimately what they become.
Yeah, I think exactly what you're talking about needs to be talked about more, because it's like with each passing year, specialization is so overhyped
Right.
by parents, by
Mhm.
coaches, by teachers, by everybody.
Right.
And I mean, you look at Roger Federer, a lot of people would say is like one of the greatest athletes of all time. And and looking at you, like you didn't come up that way at all. Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. So I think that's a really cool point. And also, if you haven't read this book, it really is amazing. Range by David Epstein. It's one of the better books I've read. And it literally opens with the comparison of Tiger Woods and Roger Federer. So
Yeah, that's what was required reading for us. So yeah, I read about that and I was like, huh, very interesting.
yeah,
Because that
no,
was
that's
me.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. I want to ask one more question that is a little bit related to things. It's something I like to talk about a lot because something I've struggled with, and I'd be curious if you guys have or your thoughts on it. But this whole idea of I'll be happy once which kind of ties back, Sean, what we were talking about, like you're having a good game and then you kind of block it out and go to the next one. But my question's a little bit different in that have you guys ever experienced sort of not allowing yourself to feel joy until you accomplished a thing or until you got to a goal? Because I know for me, like it's very specific, but in the world of being like a band director, I found, and this is kind of when I changed a lot of things about myself and my approach to wellness and all kinds of stuff, was when I finally realized this was like I would only allow myself to like feel joy after like we won a contest or we did the goal, and it was like the time in between was just like fuzzy, didn't matter, like we got to get through this and just get to the goal. And then eventually we, like you guys said, we did have some success, but like I wouldn't even feel necessarily happy anymore. It was just like a sense of relief, and then okay, now on to the next thing. So I don't know, like if either of you have any experience with that. I feel like the more people I talk to, the more they're like, oh my God, I relate to that. So anyway, I would love to hear if you have anything.
I just feel like I hear that from so many people as a dietitian and a health coach. You hear that so many women, and they feel like I will be happy when I fit into X size jeans or I'm X size. I mean, it's pretty much the health and wellness space is all about achieving that goal. So I think the older I've gotten, I've realized it's not important. You know, I had a client recently and I just tweaked a few things with her diet and got rid of her sugar in her tea, and you know, just different little tweaks, small easy things that she did, and lo and behold, she lost 10 pounds. And she was just absolutely flabbergasted because she had been counting calories, she'd been doing all of these things, and she didn't have to do that. And like you mentioned earlier about the small victories, I think celebrating those small victories is just as important as the quote unquote finish line. And of course,
That's
there's
really
no
interesting
when it comes to healthy living, but it's just about celebrating the small victories, and the work that you put to get into the small victories is so vital, and I think is as rewarding, or needs to be as rewarding as the final outcome.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to kind of what I said about my career, where you'd have a great game and you just kind of put it in the, build something behind you and kind of forget about it. Yeah, you enjoy those moments and you enjoy those minor victories, but also this goes back to being mindful and being in the present, because I think everybody succumbs to thinking ahead and go, oh, I'm going to be happy when I get that car.
Yep.
Right. I do that all the time. I'm going to be happy when this happens. I'm going to be happy when this happens. Or you look back and say, oh, I did that and that made me unhappy. I did something terrible. You can't get caught up in that. You have to stay present and you have to stay in the moment. If you do that, you don't get caught looking ahead so much, because none of that is guaranteed. So you should just enjoy the moment now.
And also it's almost like, having, watching something and you're recording it and you're saving it for later. That's what we end up doing now. We're watching a moment. Sean was honored the other day at the game, and here I am recording it. And I wanted to ask the stranger next to me, hi, will you record the Jumbotron so I can watch?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But we're recording it for later. So we'll enjoy it later. And then we're taking away from enjoying it in that moment.
Yeah. It's funny you said that, because when they were doing that at the game, on my screen, we had a different kind of montage going, and I saw myself at the victory celebration at the Alamo Dome, and I was holding this big giant camcorder thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, when you won the championship back in the
and then I said, how crazy is that? Because I'm old, I'm a curmudgeon. I'm kind of against that. Like, enjoy that moment right now.
Somebody else is filming.
And I told my producers, I said, how many times have I watched that tape? Never. I never watched that tape. So, you can sit there and record it and sit there and you miss the actual moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking, ahead that, I'm going to go home and watch this over and over. No, enjoy it now and soak it in.
And nothing's, like you said, nothing's guaranteed that next day.
True.
It's so true. I'm so glad you guys said that. You kind of took this "I'll be happy once" thing and put a different spin on it that I hadn't thought of before, but it's great. And it just makes me think of, like, you see a zoomed out picture at like a concert and you just see every
Everybody with their
single
phone.
person holding their phone up and not actually watching the concert. So I think it all ties in together, of mindfulness and finding meaning in the moment and not getting too far ahead of yourself and all of it. So I think that's
Sorry, we digressed kind of a little bit. We were a little bit all over the place.
Well,
no, it was great. You made me, like, unlocked a new way of me thinking about this.
Well, it made me think also in so many different, in every area of life, that's what you're saying is applicable. And I think back to, really, when I think about it, is when I first made my wellness transition in my mid-20s. I realized, I used to say, I'll be happy once I lose that weight, and I'm getting ready for my wedding, and I'll be happy once I look like this. But when I learned to enjoy, literally diplomacy diet my way to health, I used to think to myself, I didn't know you could feel this good in your body.
Yeah.
And I was so happy all day, every day, that I didn't even think about the goals that I had originally had, because the joy was all day, every day in those little mindful moments. But so much of it is about mindfulness. And right now, especially me trying to get back to where I feel my best, it's like, forget that, because I keep saying, this is your goal, this is your goal. And then I have to talk myself off the ledge, and I have to say, like, remember, that's not good. And also looking at our newborn baby, it's very easy in this time when he's screaming bloody murder to be like, just get to 3 months, just get to 4 months, just get to 1 year, just get to 2 years.
Actually, it's funny you say that, because when you said that thing about 4 months, I was like, oh, we just got to get to 4 months. I was like, no, you can't think about it like that.
Yeah, because I know, and everybody says, like, these are the moments that you're gonna miss when you're, he's 15 and has some other issue that, like, you're parenting a teenager and you're like, oh, I just missed when he was a newborn and he couldn't talk, like, couldn't cause me pain and sorrow. So yeah, I mean, it's just in all aspects of life, it's just really difficult to keep yourself on track. And what Sean said is about mindfulness in the moment. That's how you get through it. That's the key.
Good alliteration there too. Mindfulness
in the moment. I mean, I am an editor.
Yeah.
I like alliteration.
Good alliterations, everything.
Well, this has been amazing, as
So much
as
fun.
expected.
I wish we could hang out in person, but
I know someday
we're on Zoom.
If you guys are ever in LA, let us know. You can come meet baby Leo, and
That's right.
Let us know when you're in San Antonio. We want to meet
yeah,
baby.
We will.
yeah, that might happen soon-ish. But anyway, before we sign off here, so Claudia, where can we find everything about you and Diplomacy Diet?
You can go to diplomacydiet.com, or you can go to Instagram and at the Diplomacy Diet, and or also at Cook with Claudia. And Sean's at Sean Elliot _32, but he's not very good about.
I'm not a good.
Are you his social media manager too?
He doesn't. The only posts are the ones that I do for him.
She does Instagram. I'm social media illiterate.
That's all right.
Wrong hashtags. I don't know what to. Instagram is way over my head, but I'm okay with that.
As you should be.
My favorite posts from Claudia are when I asked Sean, I took pictures of Sean and he, like, looks amazing, and then you're like on vacation and I asked Sean to take a picture of me and it's like his thumb is in the way or it's blurry.
She just buries me. She throws me under the bus all the time.
That's my
You're
favorite.
You're a good sport. Well, if anyone's interested, happynotsatisfied.com, or on Instagram, which may also be over my head, but you can go to @happy.notsatisfied. But Sean and Claudia, thank you so much. This has been a true pleasure. And hopefully, we can see you guys in person soon.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you both.
Love to both of you.
Yes.
Love to you too.
Thank you.
Bye.
If you haven't already, please give us a rating on Apple or Spotify. And if you enjoyed this episode, or if you like the Happy Not Satisfied podcast in general, consider sharing it with a family member or friend that might like it too. Word of mouth is the most effective way for us to grow. Thanks.